Hello, internet. Hello, everyone. What is going on? My name is Leaf, and welcome to our Friday live streams with Payment Evolution, Canada's most loved payroll software solution out there. And in today's live stream, we will be talking about employee onboarding experience, not just onboarding, but essentially, when you hire an employee all the way to the end when you have to part ways. We're going to be talking about the whole employee experience, and I have Juliana who just appeared on the stream. So let me bring her in right now. Awesome. Hey, Juliana, what's going on?
It is doing, man. It is a busy week. A lot of progress. A lot of goals still ahead. I am
Nice.
pretty on fire, but I'm pretty sure I'm also going to collapse at the end of today. So,
Oh no,
it's
well, it's
good.
a
It's
Friday.
good. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
at least it's Friday, so you can do that.
That's how I like my weeks.
Yeah, a good week. It sounds like a hectic week for you, if anything. So
No, you know what? I kind of love it. I love chaos. I love progress, and you can't have those things without motion.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I know you're a workaholic, so I mean, that sounds like a dream week.
yeah, totally. I do need to call out that this is the first time we're streaming live on my LinkedIn account, and I am so happy about that. I'm really
It's
proud of my
wild.
network. I'm really proud of all of the people that I've connected with, um, and I've applied a number of times. So thank you, LinkedIn. Thank you.
That's crazy. Wow. Oh my, so your friends are gonna be watching this. If anything, your connections, your previous employers, and university professors, all of them are could be watching you right now.
Let's
No
hope
pressure.
so. Well, if they don't watch it, it's like, well, gee, thanks, guys. Yeah,
Exactly.
it means
Perfect.
that much to me. So hopefully it
No,
means a little something to someone.
yeah, exactly. I'm excited for LinkedIn Live. I've done like a number of LinkedIn Lives outside of work and everything. I find that platform I get the most engagement, maybe because like we know when someone goes on live, they get notifications. People just kind of
Yeah.
jump in randomly. Maybe that's why. But yeah, LinkedIn, big LinkedIn fan here.
Yeah, good. It's good stuff. So yeah, happy to be here and happy to be broadcasting on LinkedIn. LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, today, guys, for this live stream, we're going to be talking about creating the perfect employee experience, all the way from starting a relationship with the employee when you hire them, from the middle part when you're actually working with them, all the way to the end when you are parting ways with them, whether you have to let them go or they decide to leave or they're leaving for another company. We're going to be talking about how to create like a whole journey, a very optimal journey for that employee, so that they have the best experience. And it's your job as an employer to provide that. So with that being said, our expert Juliana is here to talk about the topic. So thank you again, Juliana.
I'm happy to be here. It's funny, I'm not an HR expert, but I've worked with a lot of startups and organizations that are in growth stage and such. And just the nature of my work means that I've had a lot of different engagements, right? Because I kind of go in for the growth goals and then I move on. And so I've had many employee journeys
Mm,
as an employee, and
yeah.
yeah, so there's some lessons from that, and then also from the marketing side of things. Culture affects performance and values and all of that. So I think I have sort of a varied perspective of this, but a very strong opinion.
Very strong opinion. Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
Perfect. So just to start this off, can you maybe tell us a little bit about why should anyone care about creating an optimal employee journey when I just need to get the job done? Like why would a small business owner right there, if they're owning painting business right now, why should they care about the entire employee journey when they just want to paint essentially?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. Um, Opinion matters, reputation matters, and I cannot help but think of employees within the four walls of your organization, as or remotely, around the world, whatever your situation is, as a microcosm of your greater market. I believe, as a marketer, that I have a job to make sure that my coworkers, my colleagues know about what's happening in marketing, that they know that we've got new campaigns coming out. Like, if there's something I want the public to be excited about, I think my coworkers should be excited too. If
Mm,
if I think that I'm going to make fans and buyers out of prospects, strangers out in the world, but the people working by my side are not excited about what we're doing, I've got things backwards. Like talk about a focus group. You literally have a focus group in your organization. And if they love what you're doing and if they carry it like it's their own, they're going to be your biggest cheerleader, your biggest ambassador. And if they don't, that's a really good sign that the public's not going to care much either. They might buy your product or service or whatever because they have to. Maybe it's the cheapest. Maybe it was the one that was right there. But they're not raving about it, and they're not excited and happy about it, and they're going to forget about it. And I don't think anyone wants that type of wants to have that type of effect on consumers. And your first consumer is the people who work with you. They're ultimately consuming your purpose, your ideas, and if they consume it and they forget, don't care, don't want to show up, dread going in, that's a pretty strong litmus test for an organization, I would say.
No, for sure. You take care of your staff, they take care of your customers. It's a very simple kind of formula.
Yeah, totally, right?
Exactly. So let's start off with maybe the beginning phase of the whole employee journey. We're talking about like recruiting, and then slowly as we're going through this live stream, we'll go towards the end, maybe letting go an employee. But start off from the beginning of that employee journey, right? Let's say we're trying to recruit for our role. We haven't selected the candidate, but we are in the process of maybe interviewing a number of candidates to fill for a specific position. Now, how do we as employers, small business owners, maybe even HR experts in this call right now, how do we make sure when we are screening through candidates and going through interviews, how do we provide the most optimal experience for them so that we can further enhance the employee journey, specifically on the recruiting side?
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I think is kind of interesting is, again, I'm not an HR pro, but I have increasingly over the last 10 years or so taken over writing the job post descriptions at companies that I work at, because if you like that is ground zero for selling your purpose. Do you feel driven to do this? So do we. We should team up. But most job postings read like ingredients on a cereal box, like really boring. And it's funny, you put a little bit of personality into a job post and suddenly everybody wants to work for you. And then if you put more than a little personality, but you actually reflect your culture and your values, now you're actually getting people who align. So I think it all starts with the job description and the job post. If you want to have a job description that reads like the ingredients on a cereal box, fine. But then you should not be using that as your job post. Your job post, in my opinion, is a it's like in Jerry Maguire when he wrote that mission statement. It's supposed to inspire.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, you haven't watched Jerry Maguire?
Again, that's like his fifth time now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got to watch Jerry Maguire. I think that's going to be on our next marketing meeting. But yeah, definitely. Like I think it starts with that job post, and then that experience, right? Like, what is it like going through the application process? And what's kind of unique, I think, with you and I is that we both have our marketing passions, but then we also have had and continue to have side hustles around coaching others that want to be where we are, sort of thing, right? Career-wise. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting thinking about it from both angles, being the organization and the marketing voice, and then also being on the receiving end, what that's like,
Yeah, exactly, for sure. And just to backtrack a little quick, you mentioned, it's important to have a really nice job description that actually inspires people to apply and they're actually excited for the role and everything, right? So, let's say that you're an HR expert, you're a business owner, right? You're not a copywriter, you don't do creative writing classes or anything of that nature. And you just kind of, you just see job descriptions as like the formal thing that you need to post so that people come in and whatnot, right? How does one who doesn't feel like they're creative write an effective job description? And what are some examples of good statements that someone can include in the job description?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think probably the best job post I ever wrote was the result of I was actually on vacation and I was reading an ebook at the time. I was reading "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek, and there's a section where he talks about how do you come up with your why. And as I
Mhm.
was reading it, I was going into my phone and writing down notes that were coming to mind about my why, the things that I believe in, and that I've gone back to those notes so many times in my life since then. It's crazy. But a lot of it's actually kind of simple. A lot of it is I believe. I believe in the potential of people. I believe that software can make our lives easier. I believe that the Canadian economy can grow leaps and bounds. I believe whatever you deeply believe. I think you start there.
Mhm.
And it's crazy how much that resonates, how simple and complex and beautiful and all of that it is, and suddenly you have common ground with people on a deep level. It's visceral. you know
Mhm.
I believe in the potential of people is one of my lines, and that has aligned me with a number of learning organizations, um,
Mhm.
and it's a deep belief of mine. So you know whether you watch an inspiring YouTube talk or read a book or just sit there and do a mind map where you just kind of brain dump. What do I care about? What matters to me? When was I happiest in my work? What was I doing? um, like, really, let's go so simple. Let's start with I believe, and fill in the blank, and keep writing that until you run out of ideas. And next thing you know, that'll turn into, do you believe in the potential of people? So do we. And that's a compelling way to start a job posting.
Mhm. Oh,
I
for
believe.
sure, for sure.
I believe.
Yeah, I love that. I've worked in the recruiting space and everything. Sometimes I have to create job postings and whatnot. And I've noticed something interesting. Being the other side of the recruiting space where I had to post a job description, I treated sometimes the job description as a formal thing I got to post so it filters through the people and the right people essentially book the interview. But what
Yep.
I fail to sometimes recognize is the other end of the experience as well.
Mm.
When I scroll through Indeed and I'm looking for a job and everything, I'm looking, there's a lot of criteria in my head when I'm assessing that job description with. So, for example, if
Totally.
I see a consulting company hiring for a digital marketing specialist, I'm not just thinking about the job and the roles and what's included in the role, but I'm also thinking, can I see myself working in this company? If I Google this company, what will I find?
Yeah.
And sometimes they lack humanness, and
Hmm.
because they lack humanness, my temptation to apply for that role
Hmm.
goes
Hmm.
down. And the problem with that is the qualified people, they have options for
Yeah.
jobs they want to go for. The
Totally.
people who are probably not the most qualified are going to jump at anything and everything. So when you have a very convincing job description, you're doing a better job at attracting qualified candidates compared to just spray and pray job hunters who just spraying their resume anywhere and everywhere. So I think we can't take a job description so lightly, just like what you mentioned.
So I hope you didn't mind that I was looking at my other screen here, because I just went into my Google Drive and I searched job post, and I grabbed one. This is one that I wrote for an organization a number of years ago, and I think it's worth sharing. Do you love lifelong learning, beautiful design, project management, and technology? Do you use project management tools, process improvement techniques, strategic design vision, team collaboration to push the limits of learning? Do you take pride in creating smart, powerful approaches to affect behavioral change, create learning experiences, raise awareness, and make a lasting impact on your audience? If you're driven by money, prestige, I'm skipping a little bit. If you're driven by money, prestige, or self interest, this isn't the place for you. We're a nonprofit, we're about community, we're driven by a deep purpose. So if you want to champion a cause, be part of a movement, revolutionize an industry, improve the learning of individuals everywhere, and take the ride of your professional life, I'd like you to meet, and then the name of the company. And you'll
Yeah.
see that I included the keywords, like there's more there. Obviously, these are the things you'd be doing on a daily basis, but the keywords don't have to be, um, one side. It's the dry side of the job post. if you are passionate about that work, you do care about the technology, you do care about user experience, you do care about innovation and continuous improvement. And so the buzzwords, I think, are integral to the passion. So I really
Mm,
appreciate what you're saying, that like you're trying to make sure that you check all the right boxes in terms of representing the role. And then we just need to think about the fact we're human. So how would you talk about that if you were really excited, you got the dream job of your life, and you were um, getting together with an old friend for the first time in a long time, and you were telling them about it? How would you talk about it? That's what your job description tone should be.
exactly. Yeah. And one thing I'll add is like, being in marketing right now, copywriting is a big part of like what I like to do. And even on the side, like I love writing copy for emails and everything. And sometimes it can be hard to write like a job description when you're in the midday and you're like, okay, now I gotta sound passionate when I'm writing and stuff, right? And jumping into that mindset, it's like, okay, now how do I do this? And if you're coming from that place when you're writing, it's gonna be a stale job description. What I personally like to do when I'm writing my copy, before I even like write the copy, I have to feel the emotion of why I'm writing it. So for example, I send I have a personal email list, and I love like attention grabbing, aggressive, borderline aggressive emails that just like instantly catch attention. And I notice whenever I feel like I have to write it, then the emails turn out bad. But whenever I'm excited about writing an email, there's a feeling inside me. And when I write from that feeling, the
Yeah.
email turns out so much better. So if you guys are listening right now and you want to write a really clever job description with just what Juliana mentioned, what you might want to do as a quick exercise is, before you start writing, maybe just like put some headphones on, pace around your room, remind yourself of the mission, the why, and why you're so passionate about it. And once you have like that fired up feeling, then you go and you write like, hey, if you are passionate about getting rid of unemployment, this is for you. If you're not, but like, it's
Yeah.
that tone that'll really catch the readers.
Yeah, totally. I love that. The thing is, the inspiration is in you. So
Yeah.
think about yourself on your happiest day. Think about what job description, job post could you write today that would attract the coworker of your dreams. The person you go home every night and talk about and say, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what Mary said." How do you reel that person in? And you're certainly not going to do it with a bullet point list of software that we need you to know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the last thing I'll probably add to that is, qualified candidates, they want to be part of a bigger mission, and not just because, it has good pay and everything. They want
Yeah.
to be part of something larger. And if you fail to communicate that, you might be missing out on potential qualified candidates, right?
Totally, totally. Sorry, that's one thing that I really love about, the millennial generation often gets or I don't think so anymore, but I think like 10 years ago, we got a bad rap in the career world, right?
Yeah.
But what I love about millennials is, sure, they want to be appreciated and all of that, but they're so purpose driven, so you won't find, um, you won't find a big chunk of this generation that's just like, I just want a good job that pays me good money, that gives me good coverage and vacation, and I kind of want to go under the radar and not really do anything. I don't want to contribute. That's not what you find. People, you find people that are like, how can I help? Can I get more involved? Can I try this? I know it's unconventional, but that's a good energy. So yeah, I think we all need to kind of embrace that part of ourselves, because we all have that part of ourselves, even if
Mhm.
we're jaded and we've
Yeah,
forgotten to go to bed.
yeah. Hire millennials. That's
Hire
just hire
millennials.
millennials.
Yeah, yeah,
Shout out to
hire.
millennials.
Oh, don't worry, you're gonna dominate the workforce in no time.
I heard somewhere like the oldest millennial is 40 now or something. I was like, what?
Yeah, I think the ranges differ depending on who you talk to. So I'm officially 40. Shh, don't tell anyone. And I don't know. There are some definitions that put me in the millennial group, and some that put me in the Gen X group. And then I discovered this subgroup called Zennials, and
Oh my God.
I'm totally a Zennial.
Oh my.
Because I really do straddle. Like, I remember this analog upbringing. I remember by hand going up to the TV and changing the dial. I was the human remote control. But then I also had internet on my own computer in my bedroom when I was 16.
Mm,
So it was it's a very interesting time where I feel like I have qualities from both, which is nice. I like to relate to people, so it helps me.
Sorry, did you just say you have to get up to turn the TV channel? You have to actually get up and manage. What is
Yes.
that? Like that is
Yeah.
weird.
So you are you actually saying you've never heard of this?
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, like I've
Okay.
heard of it. Yeah, obviously. It's just
Yeah.
I
Okay.
technically never did that in my life, so that's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of.
And there were like some channels where you had to stand and touch the TV so that everyone else could watch it. It's
Oh
just
yeah, it's like a movie, right? Those movies I see that. I've seen a movie where someone does that.
yeah. I'm constantly reminding my son, back in the good old days, you had to wait a week to see the next episode.
Oh my
You
god,
couldn't
that
just
is so
binge watch.
different. Yeah,
So it's things have changed a lot in a very short period of time.
I can imagine. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so just going back to the employee journey experience. So let's say we wrote a clever job description. We hire it attracts the right people, and they're excited and pumped about the role itself. Now let's talk about the recruiting process just a little bit. So
Sure.
when it comes to like when you're screening multiple candidates, you're doing multiple interviews, you're screening through different resumes, you're managing the ATS system and whatnot, right? How do we ensure that throughout this process that qualified candidate that is fired up about our mission is still on board for our company? Any tips around that?
Um, okay, so just before I answer that, can you define ATS? Because I find acronyms can be difficult.
Yeah, an applicant tracking system.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. And applicant tracking systems are essentially to kind of keep order of all of the applicants, but do they also scan for keywords?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks for setting that context. Well, I think kind of like, if you just kind of switch roles for a moment and think to yourself, and actually take yourself out of the professional context for a moment, imagine what it's like to walk into your, your high school friend's house. And there's the house where you feel like you're ignored and you can hang out and it's fine. And there's the house where you feel like that's your mom. Or when you go into a restaurant and they treat you like you've been there every Friday for your whole life. It's just this completely next level experience. And a great organization or a great home or a great restaurant or whatever doesn't do that one off. They do that consistently. So everyone who walks into that restaurant gets a warm welcome. So I think we need to think about what are the consistent touch points and how can we make those personal? And I don't mean personal in terms of, you need to hire another body so that everyone gets a custom written message. I mean personal as if you were writing it for one person, you know? I often use this example. It's a weird example, but when I'm talking to people about writing an email to to a company's audience, clients or prospects or whatever, I say, stop for a moment from the thinking that you're writing it for 10,000 people. And I want you to imagine one person and write it like you would for them. And the example that I use is and this is a different example, but I think it's a good one. If I am writing an email to my entire company saying, we're shutting down for the day because there's such a bad blizzard, everyone work from home. I might write, announcements, work from home day, please read and contact each other to make sure everyone knows this message. It's very important. No one is required in the office today. Very different, right? Very, very, very specific and logistical, if that's a word. But if I was writing it to almost any one person in my company, I'd probably have some personality in there, like, congratulations, you're working in your pajamas today. We've decided, we're working from home. So write it as if there's a person at the end of that, a person a person you like, and then strip out the things that are so personal that it doesn't make sense. It's an inside thing, and somebody won't get it. But with recruiting, you have to. I think the one thing a lot of people hate is that they put in a resume and they never hear anything, or they get a phone interview and they never hear anything, or they get an in-person interview and never hear anything. I know of lots of people who complain that they were like in the last round and no one ever told them we chose somebody. They just ghosted. Nobody wants to be ghosted. It doesn't matter if you're talking romance or career. So think about those messages that you can automate, write them in a personal way, and make sure you have those set up so that they go out on a regular cadence. Um, and you can use those over and over and over again. You don't even need to customize them every time you create a job post, but it's certainly going to go a long way in terms of how the candidate feels.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And having worked literally in recruiting before I got into marketing, oftentimes we would have this word, and it was called candidate journey. I believe that was the word. And basically, the candidate journey was, what is the person's experience going from applying to being onboarded, right? And oftentimes in this role, for examples, we always have to review our emails we send out to make sure they look friendly and our tone is right and everything. And even the energy with which we interviewed them is also like an experience for themselves too. So if you're approaching an interview and you're interviewing and you're very still, you're boring, you're not exciting, you sound like you're in a rush and you're in a bad mood, then that's a reflection on your company as well. Even those generic copy paste messages where you're asking them to fill out their background checks, even those, if it doesn't sound like it's very personal, as if someone took the time to write it, and if it looks very generic and copy pasted, that also affects the perception the person has throughout their onboarding experience. A big difficulty working in the recruiting space, I found, and a lot of people don't like the recruiters because of this, but it was, like you said, companies don't get back to you. So in my previous role, I was doing a lot of recruiting for TD Bank and the different roles they had. And what's interesting about TD Bank is that they would always send out like, you passed or you didn't pass messages. And I find the replies I get from those messages were like, oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time to actually let me know I didn't make it. It's so much better than everyone else I've been ghosted from. And this is why TD Bank is amazing. And I started realizing like small things, even though like, if we skipped over them, it wouldn't be a big deal. It actually is a huge deal to those candidates going through the whole recruiting process and everything.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting. That reminds me of I was interviewing not long ago for a really senior position with a consulting company in New York, and they operate globally. It was, in some ways, it was a dream job for me. It wasn't a situation where I was going to be able to grow the organization as much as I like to, but it was a new level for me. I was so excited about it, and I worked my butt off. And there was like 7 rounds or something of interviews, and I rocked every single one. I know that I did. And I got to the very last one, and I was meeting with the founders and a couple of really senior folks. And I took a more casual approach. This was the first time that I wasn't really super formal, and I didn't have everything perfectly practiced. I understood that this was just a chance for them to see if they feel comfortable with me. So I smiled a lot and I laughed a little bit here and there. And the way that I was treated when I was this perfect corporate person, I was treated like gold. And when I became a little casual, they were short with me. We ended the interview a little bit early. They ghosted me after 7 rounds, and I'm talking like one round was 5 different tests, multiple hours worth. Like there was one test where you arrive at your desk in the morning, you've got 5 emails there, and you have 1 hour to do the work based on what came into your email. So you need to prioritize, you need to try and get back as much as you can, reply back, and you're going to assess the quality of the work. Like it was not a small investment of my time. And the way that it's just so interesting to me how, like, obviously it wasn't the right place for me, but it's just so interesting to me that you treat the people that you think are good for you well. But when you think that they're not going to work for you, they don't matter in that scenario to that company. And that really changed my perception of that company. I thought working for them was a dream job, period. But it's very clear to me now that it's more of a clique mentality. And if you perfectly fit in to one of the cliques, and I'm very good at mirroring, I care about people and I listen and I mirror, but I was just myself. And man, oh man, did I get shut down fast. So maybe I shouldn't be
Wow.
myself too often. But it's just amazing that the contrast from talking to me every day through like a 12-week process to me
Ghost.
having to chase them to find out what the hell happened. So yeah, it's interesting, really
Oh,
interesting how like it's small experiences and they probably don't even remember it,
that's the
right?
worst.
Hmm.
Oh
Hmm.
my wow, man. How long was that? How's the so 7 rounds? That was probably a month long or
Oh no,
process?
it was like 12 weeks. It was and it was like this kind of happens with really senior roles. We were talking for like 7 months. So it was a long it was a
Oh my
long
god.
thing.
Oh man.
And I still believe that the mission that they have is incredible. Um, but they've I now have a bad experience with them. I didn't have one bad experience with them until that last interview with the founders, the people who came up with the mission. It's such a shame. And I know we all have bad days, but it can go, that first impression, they didn't like like the founders didn't like their first impression of me. That was the first time they spoke to me. But they
Yeah,
also did an
yeah.
impression of me too. And it goes a long way. It
Yeah,
really
for
does.
sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. And to even like add to that point, like even the slightest thing matters. I remember going to an interview. Phone interview was great. They scanned the resume. They thought I was qualified. Awesome. Qualified. I had a great impression. Loved the company. But the second I stepped into the office, I was like, "What the hell is this? I don't want to work here." And then
Yeah.
I just turned it off or down or whatever. I forget the details. But
Yeah.
even just a simple thing like when they stepped inside your office, what
Hmm.
do they see? How are they greeted? Do you actually get acknowledged and made eye contact with the front desk reception or not? And I
Hmm.
remember I'm just like, nope, nope, bye. You know what I mean? So every little thing matters.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll share a little secret with you. Like I said, I've worked in a lot of places for, that's for good reason. That's part of my career journey. But one of my secrets is that when I go in for an interview, I try and have conversation with the person at the front desk. In this world right now where everything's remote, I would try and have a phone conversation or I would try and have a little email back and forth. But ultimately, what I'm trying to do is get to a place where I can casually ask, "So, have you been here a long time? Do you like working here?" And I can tell you that every single time, with 1,000% like clarity, the response of that person dictates whether it's the place you want to work or not. Um,
Yeah.
the I went to a job interview where the receptionist responded to that question. It's a job, and And I took the job. It's not on my resume. It's not on my LinkedIn. I took the job because I was coming straight out of school, and it was my first offer. It was the most horrible place I've ever worked, and I didn't work there a long time. It was really bad, like to a point where um, I was told, everybody was told, if workman's compensation contacts us, say that none of the executive team is available. It's like, how do you operate that way? Like, you can't just shirk the government, but it was not a good place. But it's just so interesting that a micro interaction like that can tell you what it's like to work there. You know?
That's crazy. Yeah. Like I remember I was working a job I didn't like, and my coworkers we didn't kind of like job, whatever. Like she said, it's just a job. And so we went out for lunch, and we were in the elevator. Then someone comes in the elevator, and it was someone who literally just interviewed with us. And so he comes in the elevator. It's just me and him, and then a couple of my friends. And the door shuts. We're going down the elevator. So and then he's like, "So, how do you like working here?" And then we all had a weird pause for a bit. And we just looked at each other like, what do we say to this guy? And right away, I can tell this poor guy like caught the vibes right away. It was so embarrassing. I was like, I'll just be honest with you, man. Like, if you are looking to grow and everything, this is a great fit for you. There are ups and downs, and I just fluffed the
Yeah,
whole thing, but
totally. But that's the real part, right? Like, we all know what a good experience looks and feels like, and we all know
yeah,
what a bad experience looks and feels like. And so you can perform, you can fluff it up, you can do all the things you think you should do, but ultimately, if you wonder what a good recruiting experience looks like, go with your gut. Being ghosted, being bored, feeling like you're just a number, that's a good way to make a great candidate look elsewhere.
Oh, 100%. And I think if you want a really good onboarding recruiting experience, you have to be a hotel, meaning, when guests come into the hotel, they're instantly greeted. Hey, how are you? What's going on? And they'll walk you up to the room and, they'll have a conversation with you. Then they'll check up on you. Hey, how's everything going? And afterwards, they'll ask you, like, do you need anything else? And, if you're, there's a lot of things you can learn from hospitality and put that into onboarding and recruiting, right?
I actually think that is like transferable cross-disciplinary learning and best practices is like our next area of growth, because like my husband's an engineer. I have learned so much from my husband, and continuous improvement and process improvement and spaghetti diagrams and just efficiency generally that has informed my marketing work.
Wow.
No one's going to teach these things in a marketing classroom.
Mhm.
It's just it doesn't seem to fit into the curriculum, but it sure helps me spend my time on things that are going to deliver results and a good ROI, and ultimately get me growth in my career and progress and all of those things. So yeah, I really really agree with you there. If you're thinking about experience, well, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't start from scratch. Think about the best experience you've ever had that was a net new experience. I went to a resort in Cuba and they were just amazing. Everyone was dancing and singing. We got there, they handed me a drink, and I just started dancing from the moment I got there. Well, that's a really, there's a number of hints in there of what a great experience is like. I walked into the room and I felt like I belonged. This stands out for me. I went to a conference in Edmonton. It was a good conference, and there were some better experiences that I had at this conference. But when I first walked in, I don't know if I had a Toronto vibe. I don't know if it was just bad luck at that moment. But I just got this very weird, like, it was just kind of like a bunch of people turned their back, and I walked in and I was like, guess I'm alone in this party. It was a really awkward moment. And I'm social and I'm fine and whatever, and there were some really great moments. But in that moment, like, I'm pretty sure the event coordinators, the people who developed this event, don't want that to be the experience.
Yeah.
The whole idea is, we're coming together as a community to learn and grow. So what does that look and feel like? Well, it doesn't look like you walk in and you have no one to hang out with. You network, you hook up with people, you create that community. So we all know what that looks and feels like.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Totally. Cool. I feel we can talk a lot about this topic. Just moving forward, let's say. So we're talking about employee journey and everything. So we did the job description, right? We provided a great onboarding, like a interviewing experience, right? Now, let's say the candidate, in this case, the employee, they're a great fit for this role, and we want to move forward with them. And now they're in the remote onboarding experience.
Yeah.
So, with COVID-19 and everything, like most onboarding is probably going to be remote, and let's focus the conversation around that. But how do you think someone can provide the best remote onboarding experience when you can't technically bump into the kitchen and have a conversation, or, like ask them how their day is doing, because they're literally stuck at home by themselves, right? But how do we get them, like you said, to feel belonged as soon as they come on board while we are remote?
Yeah, for sure. So our human experience team that does HR consulting at Payment Evolution has put some like real thought into this, right? And they've developed best practices around remote onboarding. So there are legitimate, professional standards here. And I encourage you. I can't remember now because I have the worst memory. Was that a podcast or a blog post?
That was a blog post.
A blog post. Okay, cool. And I think we have a checklist coming out. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have a checklist. Yeah, associated with the blog
cool.
post.
Yeah, awesome. So anybody who's looking for advice on or steps on how to remotely onboard a new employee, go to our blog, blog.paymentevolution.com, and check out that blog post. It's definitely worth it. At a high level, I would say, assume nothing. Assume that, like, don't make any assumptions that the person already knows how to do this or knows that or knows what all of the jargon in the office means. I've worked in multiple places where the project management teams all use different names for the actual schedule, the project plan, the work back schedule. I can't even remember them all now. There's one like the critical path. Like there's and if you've never heard that one, you could be an expert. You could be the wizard in project management at your old workplace. But if people just use their inside lingo, you could be lost for a few days. So just assume nothing, set context, make sure, like ask the questions, make sure that the person has what they need. And I think that you need to be intentional about that remotely, because you can't just have those run-ins in the hallway. So you do need to be intentional about that. Have a check-in, a 5-minute check-in that has nothing to do with any other training or any tasks or anything other than how's it going? Do you need something? Do 5-minute check-ins twice a day. And then all of the other onboarding stuff. But just think about that connection piece. Create the connection intentionally, and set that context. Don't assume anything about where they're coming from. Assume that they've just been born and they need to know where the washroom is. Kind of, you get my idea there. That was a bad analogy, but anyway.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go into the details of remote onboarding, and we have resources for that. But I definitely think that connection, the listening, and assume nothing, always set context. Those are my sort of high level pro tips for making sure that somebody starts a job and they actually feel like they started a job, instead of I started a job but I haven't talked to anybody today, or I started a job and yeah, they barked some orders at me. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, exactly. I think the key here is just like empathy, meaning like we assume when you give someone a task, a 7-hour worth of tasks, that's it. We just give it and go, and they'll be busy by themselves. We'll take care of it. And now we can focus on our own task. But one thing I realize sometimes going through onboarding experiences myself is that it's easy to feel lonely and not cared for. And as an employer, it's important, like I said, those little touch bases. And it doesn't. I find that when people judge me, hey, let me know if you need anything. That's nice. But then when people are like, oh, cool, I noticed on LinkedIn you work here. It's awesome. Why don't you jump on a quick call and talk about it? I worked at this actually. Little pieces of empathy and a little bit, like I said, connection, instead of just dumping work and assuming they're busy, it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I think everyone can see, like we work together, but I think everyone can see that we have a good vibe. I'm a very social person. I feel the same about you. I don't think you're shy. And we still need to remind ourselves to connect more regularly and check in on each other and ask each other, what can I do to help? I know that I haven't done as good of a job as I could do onboarding you because of the remote piece, because it's new to me. But you need to be intentional and make those choices, because if you just go with the flow, well, you might stay in your pajamas and never want to get on video, or whatever it is that stands in the way of you, whatever your barriers are for actual engagement and connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Go ahead.
So there's you haven't asked about this yet, but are we talking about the middle now before being let go? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Because there are a couple things that I really want to point out. And I pride myself on being a boss I don't know. Like if I'm your boss, I pride myself on being the kind of person that you actually want to be friends with. I just want, I want to really respect each other. I want to have each other's backs. And hierarchy to me is a funny thing. I think it actually flips constantly, because really, if I'm your boss, my job is to get the barriers out of your way so you can do your job. So in some ways, I'm just your support. So I kind of have some interesting thoughts about this stuff, but I have some, I think, pro tips that have worked very well for me in terms of that middle, when somebody is working for you, whether they are your superstar employee or not. I think as leaders, anybody who's a leader, even if you are a coworker, but someone's leaning on you for advice and direction, we think that leadership means talking. but often leadership means listening.
Mm.
The worst leader, and I'm sure I've done this too, but the worst leadership trait is walking into a meeting about, we need a new solution for XYZ. And you sit down as the most senior person in the room and say, all right, this is what I think we should do. What do you guys think? You have just essentially shut down every idea. You should enter that room and say, all right, so this is the problem. This is what I'm hoping to walk out of this meeting with. Who's got an idea? Let's start somewhere. That's how you're actually going to learn and be made better by the people around you. When an employee needs something, it's a bit of a power imbalance to come and tell you, to feel comfortable coming to tell you, I'm having a personal issue, or, the software that you've given me that I know you've invested time and money in sucks. It's hard to say those things. But you're a bad leader, in my opinion, if you do not create an atmosphere where that's welcome. Even the things you don't want to hear, you should want to hear and receive well as a leader, because otherwise the things you need to hear, you never will. You never will hear them. So that's one thing. Listen first, always. And then the second one, like, these are huge for me. Listen first, always. And the second one is performance reviews. Performance reviews are funny. We have often, as a leader, I'm given a checklist where I'm supposed to check, where you rank, good, very good, needs improvement, whatever, and have comments. And the criteria is the same for everybody. And it's also funny because things like, I always had a problem with professionalism. What the is professionalism exactly? It's different to everybody. For me, professionalism is doing your job well. And I don't care if you show me personality while you're doing that. In fact, I like that. But for someone else, it might be, why are you showing me personality? I just want to see X, Y, Z at this time precisely. I don't care if you get to work on time when you were working till 11 o'clock last night because you really wanted to get something done that meant a lot to you. So for me, professionalism is defined differently. So this is my idea. This was actually an employee's idea. She brought it to me and said, I heard it was a podcast about changing the performance reviews completely. So instead of going in with a set list of things to talk about, you go in with, let's talk about everything you're really, really great at. Let's talk about the things you don't want to do anymore, if possible. And let's talk about the things you want to do and you want to get better at. And talk about a lovely performance review experience. So we started doing them that way as a pilot in my department, and then it ended up spreading across the organization. And man, performance reviews were a blast. We got to talk about how great you are and take away the things that you're not as great at. And I got to be part of helping you grow. Like it was just, for me, if you listen and you actually care about someone's strengths and invest in the strengths, don't beat them up about the stuff they're not good at. If the stuff they're not good at is 98% of the job, well, then it's the wrong job for them. But that's not a way to keep somebody happy, and that's not a way to be happy. So yeah, those are my two tips. Focus on the strengths, invest in the strengths of your people, and listen.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Wow. And shout out to Mia for giving us a thumbs up. She's watching from Facebook right now. I'm guessing she's a friend of yours, possibly.
Mia, I think it's Mia from work, actually. Well, we have a Mia at work, so I think it might be.
Oh, Mia, what's happening? How's it going?
But I do have I have a couple of Mia friends on Facebook. So I don't know, but whichever Mia it is, actually they all have really lovely energy. So I'm just appreciative generally.
Thanks again for the thumbs up, Mia.
Yeah.
So just jumping on what you just sort of mentioned there, like as an employer, right? We want to make sure we're meeting business needs and results and numbers while at the same time helping to build leaders and everything, right? And maybe during that process, there's an employee where whom we need to give critical feedback to, right? So how do we as an employer approach that conversation, while at the same time making sure that they're not disengaged from work, but at the same time, they're still more invested into the mission and we're keeping that employee experience the most optimal?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a very honest person. And so I'm not going to go into a disciplinary meeting or something and, not be myself and like sit down quietly. Usually when I walk into a meeting, there will be some small talk before, just naturally. Um, I'm going to do that same thing. I'm still going to be me. I'm going to walk in and be like, oh, what a day. I have to be honest. I've been dreading this meeting. How are you feeling? You know, just being a human being. Um, and then I really think, that mission, the why, the reason that we all go to work every day, you need to work with people where you share a why. You share some elements of your why. Because I think those conversations go very badly when your whys are different. If the reason I am here and the reason you are here are the same, if those two reasons are the same, then I think it's easy for me to say, all right, let's just level set for a second. We both believe in this. We both want to achieve that. Cool? Yeah. Awesome. I think we're doing it in these ways, and I think we're failing in these ways. And if you truly care about the goal, if you truly care about the why, you can, in a safe space, you can put your ego aside for a moment and say, yeah, that's true. Those are things that are hurting the outcome. And then talk about that. What's that about? Do you know what it's about? Is there something else going on? Is there something at work going on? Do you hate that part of your job? Is there a way to make you better at this, to make you like it? Is there a way to eliminate that, automate it? But that's not usually the conversation that's had. The conversation is usually something like, this is expected of you. You are not meeting expectations. Is there something we need to know about? If not, you need to start meeting expectations. And this is your warning. And then you're followed up with another meeting. We've already talked about this. We're developing a history of here of you not performing. Well, just walk me out on the first day, because you're setting me up for failure anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think people should do what they're great at. And if you can't find somebody that's great at every function of your business, automate it or outsource it. I wouldn't want to have one employee there that hates their job and everybody else loves it. That's not a solution. We all have to do a little bit of stuff we hate. I cap it at 10%. If you hate more than 10% of your job, then I think you need to move on. And I can't help but think of a woman that I worked for a number of years back. We had this great guy who fit in perfectly into the organization, but it wasn't his jam professionally. It wasn't his role was not aligned well with where he really belongs. And he ultimately is a teacher and an incredible teacher now. But he was working in an office and he did great and everyone loved him. But a very inspiring story there. She talked with him and said, this isn't where you belong. And we both know it. And they did it in such a way that he actually said to her, thank you, because I didn't have the guts to walk away. And he said, I need to, and he did. And months later, he came back and said, thank you again. I didn't walk out of here feeling like I wasn't good enough. I walked out of here feeling like I knew a little bit more about myself than I did coming in. Like, that's an incredible scenario, and something that I aspire to. If I ever have to let someone go, I don't want it to be horrible. I want it to also be growth. Parting ways doesn't have to be stepping back. It doesn't have to be losing for anyone. It really should be the only reason why we're parting ways is because there's something else you need to do now. That's it. We all have a purpose. So yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I love the approach with how you see and whatnot. So way back when we started this live stream, you talked a lot about, getting your coworkers excited for the mission, and you should always be working with coworkers who are just as excited as you are for the role or the vision of the company itself. Now, speaking to the business owner right now, or employer or whatever, right? How, should someone cultivate that sort of environment? It's one thing to have like a posting on the wall that says our mission is to do this, and the job description says my thing is to do this, right? And we can just bandage everything, right? Yes. But as an employer, how do we actually enforce that culture so everyone comes to work excited and they're pumped on a Monday morning?
Yeah. Ooh, there's so much in that question. I feel like that's actually like a whole talk in itself. And maybe we will do that at some point. But one thing that comes to mind is, yes, putting the values up on a wall, putting a mission statement on your brochure or on your landing page or whatever, that is lip service. That is checking a box. Yeah, we did that thing. Living those values are different. It's kind of like you mentioned empathy earlier. And empathy is a very powerful, popular keyword right now. And LinkedIn's idea of the day, I believe yesterday, it came out of an article about how empathy is not enough, how caring is empathy in action. And that's what we
Mm,
really need. We don't just need you, I don't just need you to say to yourself, oh, I feel for her. I might need you to say, you know what? I'm grabbing a tea. I'll grab you one. Or do you need to vent? That's, going that extra step. Um, and in order to live your values, first of all, the best way to live your values is to make sure that you pick values, not because they sound good, but because they are actually who you are as an organization. Your values should not come from one person. Your values should not come from a recommendation list. Your values should literally come from a brainstorming session where everybody is brain dumping words to as answers to questions, and then you pull those together and you find themes and figure out who you are, because you already have a culture, and there might be stuff you want to change about it, but don't start as if it didn't exist. You're not inventing a culture. You're codifying
mhm,
it. You're discovering it. Um, so one thing is actually, be the mission before you create the mission. Be the mission.
mhm,
The next thing is a little more formal. In the past, I've recommended and we've created a decision making framework, and it was a checklist of 7 things that related to our mission and our values. And the 7th question was, is this an exception? Essentially. So when you're going through this questionnaire, whether it's, do we want to take on this client, or do we want to start this project, or do we want to move from this building to that building? Literally every decision that we would or could make as an organization could go through the decision making framework. And it was simple, yes or no. Does this improve, uh, does this empower people? I'm kind of simplifying here because I don't remember it all. Does this use technology in an innovative way? Does this marketing or whatever value the audience's experience? Um, are we contributing to the general good? Are we creating thought leadership? Whatever your values might be. And then that last question, is this an exceptional situation? Are there multiple no's on this list, but we believe we should do it anyway? So there's still, and then you can justify and you can talk that out. Um, but we often like to say there's good and bad behavior. People who, a leader who is frustrated with an employee wants to pull their employee in and say, what were you doing? What were you thinking? No one should do that. Um, that isn't necessarily the case. There's a home and a time and place for every behavior. What you're really saying is that's not our brand behavior. That's not who we are. And we do this as human beings, right? Like, you might have a very loyal person who is consistent, who values family, who's always there for you, then cheats on their spouse. They're behaving out of alignment with their values. And they need to come to terms with that and try and understand why that happened, and can they understand it. What do they need to change so that they can live in alignment with their values? That's what we need to do as an organization, and I think a decision making framework helps with that. And then if we stop talking about behavior as good and bad and start talking about it as, it's aligned with our mission versus not, it's no longer that you're not good, it's that you're either you need to serve a different mission, or you're right. That behavior was out of line with our mission. I actually heard our mission today. I now know something about myself. I now learned something about my behavior, and I want to align again.
yeah,
It's not good or bad. it is what it is. It's just, where does it belong?
Wow. Yeah, using the values as a way to like filter through actions and decisions and whatnot, right?
Mm.
Perfect. And I just want to jump into the last part of the employee journey real quick, and then we'll probably wrap it up here. But let's say like we gave them a great onboarding process. They love the mission and everything. And for some reason, we have to either, let's say, two situations, we had to let them go because it's just not a great fit right now, or they come into us and they say they found a new opportunity, so they would like to move on with their career, right? Speaking about these two topics, you as an employer, let's say hypothetically, it came time for us to actually let go someone from our company, right? You touched on this a little bit, but really quickly, do you mind walking me through, like, how do we approach that conversation so that they don't leave the company thinking, oh, I'm gonna give them bad Glassdoor review and I'm gonna sue them and the Google reviews are gonna go down and everything. Instead, they actually leave feeling like, okay, I understand. It's totally acceptable. I understand.
Yeah,
Any
totally.
thoughts on
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about respect. I think it's about not having sort of this binary way of thinking where you're good or bad, you belong or you're not in our crew or whatever. It's about respect. And I think whether you're letting someone go because their performance is not where you need it to be, or if they're letting you go as an employer because they've found something else they need to do, you do it respectfully. And we had a podcast this week about the last chance to terminate. That was this week, right?
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
the memory. And the last chance to terminate is ultimately based on the idea that you don't want to let somebody go on December 20th, right before the holidays. Talk about killing morale. Talk about
Mm,
leaving everyone feeling uncomfortable. It's not respectful. It's not conscientious. So I think it really, really comes down to being respectful. And when you're letting
mm,
someone go, it's very easy to feel guilty, to feel like the bad guy. And I think that if you let go of that for a moment, you can be respectful and compassionate. If you if you feel like the bad guy, you might be defensive. And then you might go into attack mode, even if it's subtle, like, well, I would have loved to keep you, but you're not performing. You're not
mhm,
trying to make the other person uncomfortable. Share the discomfort. No one wants to
mm.
have that conversation. But it doesn't mean that one of you is good and one of you is bad. It doesn't mean that one of you is deserving and one of you isn't. Um, it is what it is, and it can be
What
done
it
with
is.
respect.
100%. I remember seeing colleagues being let go, and there'd be security guards like escorting them out, or we can always see when a security guard is coming with the hiring manager around the corner, someone's gonna be let go and everything.
Yeah. I worked at one place, we were doing like a revamp of all of their e-commerce stuff, and they got a new CEO that was an interesting pick, but regardless, she had made a structural decision in the organization, and within like a month of her joining, they let a bunch of people go. And I remember I went in to speak to the HR manager, and I was like, how you doing? Are you cool? Like, I know you're having a hard day. And standing in the corner behind a tree, one of those indoor trees, was the CEO. While people were getting let go, this new CEO stood there kind of like trying to hide behind the tree, which was not possible, watching this happen. And it was just so strange to me. If I had made a decision if I had made a decision to let people go, and I thought it was the right decision for the organization, then I also believe it's the right idea for them. I believe that, they're not gonna be able to deliver their greatest value, and I'm gonna face up to it. I'm gonna sit there across the table from them and say, "Do you have any questions? Do you disagree with my decision? You deserve this time and space to be heard." It
Mm.
was so strange.
Behind the tree. What?
And just like sinister, like, oh, I know everyone's talking bad about me today. Well,
Oh,
I get it. I get it. You feel attacked too. But that's what leadership is about. Leadership is about being proud of your behavior, even when no one's deserving of it. If you're going to choose who you are and how you behave and how you lead and how you fire and all of that based on the bad treatments you've received in your life, well, there's a crappy way to pay it forward.
Yeah.
You can really ruin a lot of lives that way, or you can bring people hope, and that
Mm.
there's such incredible power in that. If people are trash talking you, if you are making the tough decision because the organization won't survive and the mission won't survive, if you don't let go of half your employees and change your structure and all of that, then own it. You know,
Okay.
it's an honor, a privilege, and a burden to make that kind of decision. But I think when you do it with respect, it's something people can accept.
For
No,
sure.
no one's going to accept disrespect. You know.
100%.
Mhm.
And one last thing before we end it, and that was one scenario. Talking about other scenario, an employee comes up to you in your office, books a meeting in your calendar. You ask, "Hey, what's on your mind right now?" And they say, "Well, I'll be honest with you. I'd like to submit my 2 weeks notice. I got a new offer at this other company, and because of this thing, I will be leaving this company." Now, you as an employer, you obviously want to keep an optimal employee journey. How do you take in the conversation? Like, what I'm pretty sure it's not too complex, but any ideas around how to facilitate that?
Yeah, for sure. Like again, I can put on the corporate facade when I need to, but if you're working with me, you know me well enough that I can be myself in that situation. So you might walk in, if you walked in and said, "I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice, Juliana," you'd probably hear me swear and be like, "Damn it. All right, where are you going?" Like I want to know where you're going, because I want to be happy for you. I want to know that it's a good fit for you. I want to know um, what you couldn't get with me or with this organization. Um, I want you to know if the door is open for you to come back. If I think that there's potential that you might not be happy, I want you to feel like we still have a good relationship. Um, and I want to learn from it. There are things you can tell me in that moment that you might not tell me about me at later times,
Yeah.
Um, and I think we do that by being human. So I think it's, instead of being angry, which makes somebody feel guilty and bad, why not be honest about, oh, damn it, I don't want to lose you. What's wrong with that? Like, you just gave me so much work, you know, you
Mhm.
bugger. Dare you? And like, obviously, I want you to be in a good place, but let's be real. Like, you're gonna be tough to replace. Like, that's a good feeling.
Mhm.
It's bittersweet as opposed to just bitter. So
Mhm.
I'm really big. I know it's an overused word, but I'm really big on just being authentic. And being authentic requires vulnerability, and it often doesn't fit into the definition of professional. But I know personally, um, those are the people I want to work with. And in my experience, people that I work with respond better to me when I'm myself. Most do. There are some where I need to be prim and proper and like courtesy, and that's okay. I don't mind playing princess in those moments. But the fact is, I think when we're all real, um, when we're all vulnerable, then we can actually, like, you don't know when you've got a chip on your own shoulder. So if you come and quit and I'm angry at you, I might not see that because all I'm seeing is what you did to me. How dare you put me in this situation? But when you're vulnerable, you see that anger isn't actually what you're feeling. What you're actually feeling is disappointment and sadness and hurt.
Mhm.
And then you can say, "Oh, I'll be honest, I'm disappointed. But what can we do with this now?"
Yeah.
So some big mindset things there, I think.
It's all mindset. It's all mindset, right? And then like empathy, authenticity, all this stuff, caring and whatnot. Well,
Mhm.
perfect. That does bring us to the end of this live stream. Juliana, thanks again for being on the show, even though you work here at the company.
No, but thank you too. Like, I'm loving these conversations. I think we're getting some great content out, and I just love how you're engaged. It's fun for me too. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And where can people find you?
Check me out online. You can Google JTCINA. That's JT China, JTCINA, and you'll find me on Twitter, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Follow me anywhere, DM me. I love meeting new people, and ask me questions. Ask me your questions. I'll either answer them on social or I'll answer them here.
Beautiful. Awesome. There you have it, guys. And again, feel free to follow us at Payment Evolution on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. And if you're interested in more content like this, be sure to, stay in tune for our next live. We're doing next week, same time, literally same place. So be on the lookout for that. And if you enjoyed this, feel free to let us know in the comment section wherever you're watching this right now. And guys, thanks again for hanging out with us. We will see you in the next episode or next live stream. And thank you again, Juliana, for being here.
Ciao. Thank you.